The Shadow Man. A murder mystery full of suspense, following a relentless detective and a chilling serial killer. This is a Moon Dragon original production. All rights are reserved. Prologue. The first rule was patience. He had waited for 3 nights. 3 long, quiet nights, parked across the street in a rusted sedan no one looked at twice. Curtains drawn, lights off. No television, no music, just silence and the careful study of a woman's life. He knew when she got home from work. He knew she preferred tea over coffee, chamomile before bed. He knew she called her sister every Wednesday at 9, laughed too loudly, and never noticed the man in the shadows watching her through binoculars. She had a dog once, a yappy little terrier. It vanished a month ago. She never replaced it. That made things easier. The Shadow Man adjusted his gloves. Midnight now. The house across the street was dark. She was inside, sleeping or reading in bed with that lamp of hers. He could almost picture it, her hands curled around a paperback, eyes heavy with fatigue, one light still glowing in the upstairs window. He liked the quiet ones best. Crossing the street was simple. A drizzle had begun, masking his footsteps. He wore dark clothes, moved with the stillness of habit. The lock on her back door was flimsy, a joke. He had it undone in seconds. Inside, he paused. He always paused. Let the house breathe around him. Listen for creaks. Listen for patterns. Then he moved. Up the stairs. Past the photos on the wall, a family smiling at the beach, a childhood graduation. All moments of life she thought were permanent. None of it mattered now. He entered the bedroom. She stirred, sensing him. They always did. Some primal instinct whispered to them in those last moments, "You are not alone." Her eyes blinked open, confusion first, then terror. He leaned close, so close she could feel his breath. "You're part of my story now." And then silence. When he left, the house was as quiet as he had found it. Only one new detail remained, a black ribbon tied delicately around her wrist, a signature only he understood. Chapter 1. Detective Andy Moore. Detective Andy Moore hated the smell of rain on crime scenes. It mingled with the copper tang of blood, seeped into the evidence, washed away the tiny details he needed most. He pulled up his collar against the drizzle and stepped under the police tape. The house on Willow Lane was swarming with uniforms. Flashbulbs popped as crime scene techs documented everything. The woman lay in her bed, pale as porcelain, peaceful almost, if not for the black ribbon tied neatly around her wrist. Andy crouched beside her, squinting. That's not a burglary gone wrong. Detective Lisa Grant, his partner of 5 years, stood beside him. No signs of forced entry. Back door lock was picked. Neighbors didn't hear a thing. Andy tugged on gloves, careful not to touch the ribbon directly. Whoever did this wanted us to see this, wanted us to know it wasn't random. Lisa folded her arms. You're thinking ritual. I'm thinking serial, Andy said grimly. The captain groaned from the hallway. Don't start, Moore. One body does not make a serial killer. Andy didn't look up. His gut never lied, and his gut told him this was the beginning of something dark. Chapter 2. First Threads. The precinct smelled of burnt coffee and damp raincoats. Andy sat at his desk, staring at the case file, the image of the black ribbon glaring back at him from the photos. Lisa dropped a box of takeout noodles in front of him. Eat, you look like hell. He ignored the food. You ever see anything like this before? Ribbon, neat as a bow, no fingerprints, no fibers. She sat across from him. Plenty of psychos leave calling cards. Doesn't mean we've got a serial on our hands. Could just be some creep with a fixation. Andy leaned back, rubbing his temples. No, he's disciplined, he waits, he plans. This wasn't about rage. It was about control. Lisa sighed. Tell me you're not about to start calling him something catchy. The press will eat it up. Andy's eyes lingered on the photo. The ribbon seemed to stare back. They'll call him something. Better we get there first. Lisa rolled her eyes. Here we go. Andy said it softly, almost to himself. The Shadow Man. Lisa groaned. God help me. But deep down, she felt it too. This wasn't the end. This was only the first shadow. Chapter 3. The press sniffs blood. By morning, the reporters had swarmed Willow Lane like vultures. Andy hated reporters almost as much as he hated rain. They tripped over police tape, shoved cameras into grieving neighbors' faces, and demanded answers the department didn't have. At the briefing podium, Captain Harris wiped his brow, the cameras glaring like interrogation lamps. At this time, we can confirm the victim was 28-year-old Grace Miller, a school teacher. We are treating this as an isolated incident. Andy watched from the back, jaw tight. Isolated incident. Grace Miller hadn't been isolated from anything, she'd been chosen. A reporter raised his hand. Detective Moore, do you agree with the captain? All heads swiveled toward Andy. He froze. He wasn't supposed to speak, he knew that, but his mouth betrayed him. No, Andy said flatly. This wasn't random, he left us a signature, he'll do it again. The room erupted. Harris looked like he might strangle Andy right there. But somewhere, watching from a shadowed apartment or behind the wheel of a nondescript car, the killer smiled. Chapter 4. The Shadow Watches. The news played on a dusty television in a dingy basement. Detective Andy Moore's face filled the screen. His jawline, his steady voice, his bold declaration. The shadow man sat in a wooden chair, watching, hands folded neatly in his lap. So, he whispered, you see me. Most detectives didn't. They looked at bodies and saw mess. He wanted them to see art. Andy Moore had seen art. The shadow man's lips curled. That made Andy special. That made Andy his. Chapter 5. Doubt in the squad room. Do you enjoy getting me chewed out? Lisa hissed as they walked back into the precinct. Andy shrugged. The public deserves to know what we're up against. The public deserves not to panic, she snapped. Captain Harris stormed in, slamming the conference room door behind him. His face was crimson. Moore, you ever pull that stunt again, I'll have you writing parking tickets in the rain until you retire. Andy stayed calm. With respect, Captain, this guy wants an audience. Pretending it's nothing only feeds him. Harris jabbed a finger. And telling the press we've got a serial killer on the loose. You just gave him his headline. Lisa cut in before Andy could answer. We'll keep it contained, sir. I'll keep him on a leash. The captain glared. Do that, or I'll find someone who can. When he left, Lisa smacked Andy's arm. Happy now. But Andy wasn't smiling. He was staring at the photo of Grace Miller on the board. I just painted a target on my back, he said quietly, and he'll come for me. Chapter 6. Another ribbon. It took only 4 days. The call came in just before dawn. Another body. Andy and Lisa raced across the city, siren wailing, tires hissing over wet asphalt. The victim was found in a downtown apartment. Same scene, different address. No forced entry, no struggle. Just the quiet body of a young man, ribbon tied delicately around his wrist. Andy crouched, bile rising in his throat. Male victim this time, so it's not about type, it's about ritual. Lisa crossed her arms, voice low. You were right, we've got a serial. Andy's stomach knotted. Being right had never felt worse. Chapter 7. The Note. Back at the precinct, the envelope waited on Andy's desk. No postage, no fingerprints, just his name scrawled across the front in looping black ink. Lisa frowned. Don't open it. Andy tore it open. Inside was a single line, typed neatly. You saw me, now I see you. Andy's pulse quickened. He looked at Lisa. He's watching us. She paled. No, Andy, he's watching you. Chapter 8. The Thread. Andy stared at the message until the words blurred. You saw me, now I see you. It wasn't just a taunt, it was a claim. Lisa leaned over his shoulder. We run the paper for fibers, pressure, anything. Already on it, Andy muttered, but his instincts screamed louder than any lab test could. This wasn't just a killer. This was a game, and Andy had been chosen as the opponent. Lisa broke the silence. We need a profile. I'll call the bureau. Andy shook his head. He's not textbook. He's not chasing attention from the media. He's chasing me. Which makes it personal, Lisa said. And personal is dangerous. Chapter 9, The Victim's Brother. They met him at the morgue. Ethan Miller, Grace's younger brother, sat stiff in a chair, eyes rimmed red. He didn't cry. He just clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white. Did your sister know anyone who might have? Lisa trailed off. Ethan's voice cracked. Grace was boring. Church, school, home, that was it. She didn't deserve this. Andy crouched down to eye level. Ethan, sometimes killers watch their victims before choosing them. Did you notice anyone hanging around? A car parked too long, a face you didn't recognize. Ethan hesitated, his brow furrowed. There was a man, couple weeks ago. He came into her classroom to ask for directions. Grace said he gave her the creeps. Andy felt his pulse quicken. Did she describe him? Ethan nodded. She said he had the kind of face you forget, like he wanted it that way. Chapter 10, The Net Tightens. Back at the precinct, Lisa pulled up school visitor logs. Nothing, no sign of him. Andy paced. He wouldn't use his real name, he's meticulous. Then how do we catch a ghost? She asked. Andy stopped packing. We don't, we make him catch us. Lisa blinked. Excuse me. If he's watching me, I'll give him something to see. Her voice sharpened. That's reckless. Andy's jaw set. So is waiting for another body. Chapter 11, The Stakeout. The bar smelled of whiskey and rain. Andy sat at the counter, nursing a drink he didn't want. The kind of place a man could disappear into. Lisa sat in a car outside, listening over comms. This is insane. Relax, Andy muttered, scanning the room through the mirror behind the bar. If he's following me, he won't resist the bait. Hours crawled by. Nothing but the hum of neon and the occasional drunk stumbling in. Then movement. A man slid into a booth across the room. Bland face, forgettable clothes, but his eyes, dark, unwavering, were fixed on Andy. Lisa's voice crackled. Andy, you've got company. Andy's pulse spiked. Yeah, he whispered. I see him. Chapter 12, The Vanishing Act. Andy stood, casually tossing cash on the bar. He turned, feigning indifference, and walked toward the door. He could feel the man's gaze burning into his back. Lisa, he's moving. He's right behind you. Andy pushed into the rainy night, heart hammering. His unmarked car sat across the street. He crossed fast. A footstep splashed behind him. He reached for the handle when a passing truck roared by, spraying water. Andy blinked just for a second. When his vision cleared, the street behind him was empty. Lisa burst from the car. Where is he? Andy stared at the shadows, every nerve alive. He was right there, he said hoarsely, and now he's gone. Chapter 13, A Gift in the Dark. Andy arrived home past midnight, every muscle tight. He locked the door twice, poured a stiff drink, and tried not to think about the eyes that had followed him from that bar. The apartment was silent, too silent. He flicked on the kitchen light and froze. On the table sat a box, small, plain, wrapped with a black ribbon tied in a bow. Andy's blood ran cold. He hadn't left it there. His hands shook as he lifted the lid. Inside was a photograph, not of a stranger, not of a past victim. It was him, Andy Moore, snapped through the blinds of his own living room window. Written across the bottom, in neat handwriting. You're in my story now. Chapter 14, The Old Files. Lisa nearly tore the photo in half when Andy showed her. This isn't just taunting. He's telling you he can walk into your life whenever he wants. Andy's jaw clenched. Then let's figure out how long he's been writing this story. He spent the next 2 days buried in boxes of cold cases, crimes that never made sense, murders that never quite fit. Lisa appeared with 2 coffees. You think he's been doing this for years? Andy held up a dusty file. Try decades. The victim had the same calling card, black ribbon tied around the wrist. Lisa's breath caught. That's 20 years old. Andy nodded grimly, which means he's not improvising, he's perfecting. Chapter 15, The Escalation. The next body was found in a park. Broad daylight, joggers, children on swings, and yet the shadow man had struck as if the world were blind. Andy stared at the victim, another ribbon, another neat bow. But this time there was something new. Pinned to the ribbon was a scrap of paper. A single sentence. "More can't catch me." The press ate it up. Cameras crowded the station. Headlines screamed of a city held hostage. Lisa cornered Andy in the squad room. "He's not just killing, he's performing." Andy's voice was low, dangerous. "Then it's time I take the stage." Chapter 16, Close Call. Andy's phone buzzed as he left the station. Unknown number, he answered. A whisper, "Detective Moore." Andy froze. "Who is this?" "You're getting closer. Too close. Maybe I should write a new chapter tonight. Maybe someone you care about." Andy's stomach dropped. "If you touch her." But the line went dead. He sprinted toward Lisa's car, heart hammering. She rolled down the window, confused. "What's wrong?" Before he could answer, the windshield exploded, shot fired from the shadows. Andy tackled her to the ground as glass rained down. Lisa gasped, wide-eyed. "He's here." Andy scanned the rooftops, gun drawn, but saw nothing but darkness. Chapter 17, The Link. They survived the ambush, but the city was boiling. Pressure from the mayor, headlines about incompetence. Andy ignored it all, combing through his files again. And then he saw it. A name buried in a 2-decade-old report. A janitor at the first crime scene. Quiet man, ordinary face. He'd been questioned, then forgotten. Andy whispered it aloud, as if testing its weight. "Richard Hale." Lisa leaned in. "You think Hale is the shadow man?" Andy's eyes burned with certainty. "He's been walking past us the whole time, a ghost hiding in plain sight." Chapter 18, The Watcher. Andy stood outside the crumbling apartment building on Ashwood Avenue, rain dripping from his collar. Hale lived here, at least according to records. The place was too quiet. No light, no movement, just a faint smell of mildew and cigarettes. Lisa murmured from his side, "You sure about this?" Andy nodded, positive. They climbed the stairs. Each creak sounded like a gunshot in the silence. Apartment 4B. Andy raised his fist, knocked. The door swung open on its own. Inside, nothing but shadows, and on the table another box wrapped in a black ribbon. Lisa swore under her breath. Andy opened it. Inside, a recorder. He pressed play. "Detective Moore, welcome to my home." Chapter 19, The Trap. The recording continued, the shadow man's voice calm, taunting. "You're clever, persistent, but you're still chasing footprints I left decades ago. While you search the past, I write the future." Then silence. And then a click. Andy's instincts screamed. "Down!" he shouted, tackling Lisa. A small device under the table blinked red. The apartment erupted in smoke and fire, a concussive blast rattling the walls. They crawled out coughing, ears ringing, as neighbors screamed and alarms wailed. Lisa glared at him through the haze. He knew we'd come. Andy wiped soot from his face. "Not new," he rasped. "Planned." Chapter 20, The Cat and Mouse. The blast made headlines. The city turned from terrified to furious. Politicians demanded answers. The media branded the killer the Shadow Man, the name sticking like glue. Back at the precinct, Andy paced like a caged animal. "He's not just avoiding us, he's controlling the game." Lisa rubbed her temples. "If Hale is our guy, why leave records linking him to the first crime scene? Why not vanish completely?" Andy stopped packing. "Because he wants us to follow. He wants me chasing him." Lisa's eyes narrowed. "Then where's he leading you?" Andy's voice was grim. "Somewhere worse." Chapter 21, The Call. It came at 2 a.m. Andy's phone buzzed on his nightstand. He answered without hesitation. The whisper again. You keep finding me, detective. I admire that. But admiration has its price. Andy gripped the phone. Where are you, Hale? A low chuckle. Closer than you think, but it's not me you should worry about. It's who I choose next. Andy's chest tightened. Who? You'll know when you hear the screaming. The line went dead. Andy sat in the dark, fists clenched. He wasn't chasing a killer anymore. He was being led straight into hell. Chapter 22, The Wrong Move. 2 days later, another body dropped. Public place again. This time, a courthouse hallway in broad daylight. The same black ribbon, the same neat bow. But this time, carved into the wall above the victim in black marker. More was here. The press swarmed. Politicians raged. Inside the squad room, the captain slammed his fist on the table. He's framing you, Moore, making it look like you're part of this. Lisa looked at Andy, pale. He's not just writing his story anymore. He's writing yours. Andy stared at the evidence photos, jaw tight. He knew what everyone else was starting to wonder. Was the hunter turning into the hunted? Chapter 23, pulled from the case. Andy sat in the captain's office, the blinds drawn, the air thick with cigarette smoke. The captain's voice was flat. You're off it, Moore. Andy's chest tightened. You can't do that. I can, and I will. He's framing you. The press is eating it alive. The mayor's office is screaming for a head, and guess whose it's gonna be if you keep this up? Andy leaned forward. He's killing people in broad daylight. You think sidelining me is going to stop him? The captain's eyes hardened. What I think is you've gotten too close. Maybe too close to see straight. Hand over your badge and your gun. Andy felt the weight of the metal in his palm as he slid it across the desk. For the first time in years, he felt naked. The captain leaned back, weary. Go home, Moore, before he buries you too. Chapter 24, The Fracture. Lisa found him on the steps of the courthouse, staring at nothing. They cut you loose, she said softly. Andy didn't answer. She sat beside him, close enough to share the silence. Finally, she whispered, He's winning, Andy. Andy turned, his eyes hollow but burning. Not yet. They can take my badge, my gun, but they can't take the fact that I'm the only one who knows how he thinks. Lisa studied him, torn. If we keep going, it's us against the department, against the system. Andy gave a humorless smile. Then it's a good thing I stopped trusting the system a long time ago. Chapter 25, Into the Dark. They started their hunt in places the department wouldn't touch. Abandoned records, off-the-books files, whispers from old contacts who owed Andy favors. Each clue painted a sharper picture of Richard Hale, a man who erased himself, who slipped through cracks like smoke. A man who had been at the edge of every tragedy, every forgotten death, for decades. One night, in a diner booth littered with coffee cups, Lisa spread out photos from cold cases. Look at this. Each victim was different, teachers, clerks, strangers, but each carried the same thread, overlooked, invisible lives. Andy traced the black ribbons in the photos with his finger. He's choosing victims the way he chose his identity. People no one looks at twice. Lisa whispered, like him. Chapter 26, Hunted. The first sign came in the rusted reflection of a diner window. A man across the street, standing too still. Then another. Lisa leaned in, whispering, We've got tails. Andy kept his face neutral. Not cops, Hale's men. They slipped out the back, rain-soaked alleyways swallowing their footsteps. Andy's mind raced. Hale wasn't just a lone wolf anymore. He had help. Gunmetal gleamed in the dark. A shot rang out, shattering brick. Lisa ducked behind a dumpster. Andy returned fire, but the men melted into shadows. Lisa's breath came ragged. Since when does a ghost have soldiers? Andy's voice was low, fierce. Since he decided to burn everything down. Chapter 27, Crossing the Line. They regrouped in a cheap motel on the edge of the city, the kind of place where no one asked names. Lisa cleaned a graze on Andy's arm. If the department finds us, we're done. If Hale finds us, we're dead. Andy's eyes were steel. Then we find him first. Lisa hesitated, then pulled a folder from her bag. There's something I didn't tell you. FBI flagged a case 2 years back. Victim with a ribbon, different city, different jurisdiction. They never solved it. Andy's hands closed around the file. He's been everywhere, leaving breadcrumbs. Lisa nodded. And if we follow them far enough? Andy finished the thought. We get to the monster's door. Chapter 28, The City of Shadows. The city no longer felt like home. To Andy, every alley was a blind spot, every window a sniper's nest. Hale had poisoned the place, turned it into a living labyrinth where trust meant nothing. Lisa walked beside him, tense. Feels like he's everywhere, like the city's breathing for him. Andy scanned the street. He knows every corner, every crack. That's how he hides, that's how he hunts. They passed a wall plastered with newspapers. Headlines screaming about the Shadow Man, Andy's name dragged through mud. Lisa touched his arm. He's painting you as the villain. Andy's jaw clenched. Then I'll end this before he writes the last chapter. Chapter 29, The Informant. They met him in the basement of a shuttered pool hall, the air stale with smoke and mildew. Name, Donovan, the man said, lighting a cigarette with trembling fingers. I've seen him, Hale, only he wasn't calling himself that, went by Rick. Andy leaned forward. Where? Donovan exhaled a stream of smoke. He runs with guys down by the docks, pays them to keep eyes on cops, move things around, but he's careful, real careful. Lisa's voice was sharp, careful enough to let you walk away. Donovan smirked. I didn't say I walked away, I said I survived. He stubbed the cigarette out. You didn't hear this from me. You go looking for him down there, you might not come back. Chapter 30, The Docks. Night at the docks was a symphony of foghorns and echoing footsteps. Cargo containers loomed like tombstones. Andy and Lisa moved between them, guns drawn, hearts pounding. A sound, metal scraping, a shadow shifting. Lisa whispered, We're not alone. Figures emerged from the mist. 3 men, hard eyes, weapons glinting. Hale's soldiers. The standoff lasted seconds before chaos erupted. Bullets sparked against steel, footsteps thundered on wet concrete. Andy dropped 1 man, Lisa another, but the third slipped away into the maze of containers. Andy chased him, lungs burning. The man vanished into the fog, but not before tossing something at Andy's feet. A ribbon, black, neatly tied. Chapter 31, The Warning. Back at the motel, Andy unwrapped the ribbon. It was tied around a slip of paper. 1 sentence in Hale's handwriting. Stop chasing ghosts more, or I'll make her disappear. Lisa paled. He means me. Andy's grip tightened on the note until his knuckles whitened. He's trying to split us, make me afraid to keep you close. Lisa's voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed her fear. Then don't keep me close, keep me useful. Andy met her gaze, and for a moment the weight of their partnership, trust, unspoken loyalty, was the only thing holding him together. Chapter 32, The Gathering Storm. The next morning, the city woke to chaos. A judge found dead, another ribbon, another note. The mayor declared a state of emergency. SWAT flooded the streets. And through it all, whispers spread. Maybe Detective Andy Moore wasn't the hunter. Maybe he was the Shadow Man himself. Andy watched the news broadcast in silence, jaw tight. The anchor's words cut like glass. Authorities refused to comment on whether Moore remains a suspect. Lisa switched the TV off. He's not just killing, he's rewriting the truth. Andy stood, eyes hard. Then it's time we stop chasing him, time we drag him into the light. Chapter 33, The Breakthrough. The clue came at dawn. Lisa sifted through shipping records from the docks, eyes gritty with fatigue. Andy, look at this. She pushed the paper toward him. A series of containers rented under different shell names, but all traced back to the same origin. Andy's heart kicked. Pier 19. He's been using the docks as cover. Lisa nodded grimly. And if he's as arrogant as we think, he's still there. Andy grabbed his jacket. Then we finish this tonight. Chapter 34, Pier 19. The warehouse smelled of rust and salt, the air damp with fog. Andy and Lisa crept through rows of containers, guns drawn. Every sound echoed, the drip of water, the distant creak of chains. Then a voice cut through the darkness, smooth and mocking. "Detective Moore, you finally arrived." Andy froze. Hale stepped into view, his face bland, forgettable, except for the cold gleam in his eyes. Lisa whispered, "It's really him." Andy's voice was low, steady. "Richard Hale, the Shadow Man." Hale smiled faintly. "Names are irrelevant, stories are what last." Chapter 35, The Firefight. The first shot came from the rafters. Hale wasn't alone. Men poured out from behind containers, weapons blazing. Andy and Lisa dove for cover as bullets shredded wood and metal. The warehouse became a war zone, echoes bouncing like thunder. Lisa fired back, dropping one of Hale's soldiers. Andy pressed forward, adrenaline roaring in his veins. "Come on," Andy shouted, dragging Lisa toward the stairs. "He's not getting away this time." Hale's laughter floated above the chaos. "You think you're the hero of this story, Moore? You're just another chapter I'll write." Chapter 36, The Chase. Hale bolted through a side door, slipping into the fog-soaked night. Andy followed, feet pounding the dock, gun in hand. Lisa's voice crackled in his earpiece. "Andy, wait, it's a trap." But Andy couldn't stop. Hale sprinted across the pier, weaving between crates. A flash of steel, a knife gleamed in his hand. Andy tackled him hard, the two men crashing to the planks. The knife skittered into the dark. They fought like animals, fists slamming, breath ragged. Hale clawed at Andy's throat, whispering through gritted teeth, "You're mine now, detective, you'll never erase me." Andy drove his fist into Hale's face, once, twice, until blood slicked the man's forgettable features. But Hale only smiled. Chapter 37, The Takedown. Lisa appeared from the fog, gun raised. "Andy, move." Andy rolled aside just as Hale lunged. A single shot cracked the night. Hale staggered, eyes wide, a red bloom spreading across his chest. He crumpled to the dock, still smiling through the blood. "Stories don't die," he whispered, voice fatting. "They just change authors." Then he was still. The fog rolled in thicker, swallowing the scene. Andy sat back, chest heaving, staring at the man who had haunted his every waking thought. Hale was finished, but the words lingered in Andy's head, gnawing like a curse. Stories don't die. Lisa knelt beside him, hand steady on his shoulder. "It's over, Andy." Andy's gaze didn't leave Hale's lifeless face. "No," he said quietly. "It's just the ending of one story. The next one's already waiting." Part 1 Fallout. The morning headlines screamed. "The Shadow Man dead. Detective Moore ends reign of terror." Andy sat in the precinct briefing room, the walls buzzing with reporters outside. Inside, Captain Ross addressed the team. "Richard Hale, aka the Shadow Man, is officially confirmed deceased. His network is dismantled, and the city owes its life to Detective Andy Moore and Detective Lisa Hart." Applause broke out, though Andy barely heard it. His body ached, bruises purpling under his shirt, but the noise seemed to come from far away. Lisa leaned closer. "You okay?" Andy managed a faint smile. "I should be, but it feels unfinished, like we cut off one head and another's already growing." Ross clapped Andy on the back. "That's the job, Moore. You win battles, wars keep going." Andy just nodded. He knew the captain was right, but Hale's final words still echoed in his head. Part 2, Reckoning. Later that night, Andy stood outside the courthouse. Floodlights bathed the stone steps where Hale's case would have unfolded, now just a crime scene of burned files, shattered glass, and bitter smoke. Reporters shouted questions as he passed, but Andy ignored them. Lisa caught up. "You're not going to the press conference." He shook his head. "This isn't about cameras, it's about closure." She folded her arms. "You know we'll never have real closure. Men like Hale, they leave scars. Not just on victims, on us too." Andy glanced at her, exhaustion in his eyes, but also a glint of steel. Then maybe the only closure we get is making sure the next one doesn't happen. Lisa smiled faintly. You're relentless, Andy. That's why you scare them. He almost laughed. I scare myself sometimes. Together they walked down the steps, the courthouse looming like a wounded giant behind them. The war wasn't over, but tonight they'd won. Epilogue, Shadows and Light. Weeks later. The city breathed easier, though whispers lingered, copycats, sympathizers the dark corners Hale had poisoned. Andy sat in his apartment, case files stacked on the table, a whiskey glass in his hand. The city skyline blinked through the window. He picked up one last photo, Hale, lifeless on the pier. He stared at it for a long time before sliding it into a folder marked closed. Then his phone buzzed. A new case, a new shadow. Andy sighed, grabbed his coat, and headed for the door. Because in a city like this, light only mattered if someone was willing to fight the dark. And Andy Moore was still standing. And that's it, Detective Andy Moore versus the Shadow Man. What a ride, right? Now here, where you come in. Backhand index pointing right, drop a comment below, and tell me where in the world you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Backhand index pointing right, smash that like button if you enjoyed the twists, the suspense, and that epic takedown. Backhand index pointing right, and of course, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next thriller. We've always got another mystery lurking in the shadows. Remember, every time you like or comment, a detective somewhere gets one step closer to solving their toughest case. Winking magnifying. Stay safe, stay sharp, and keep your doors locked.